Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be talking about the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio and where I think it is generally headed with some custom-made indicators, some key levels of support and resistance, and generally, and more importantly, the implications this has on the rest of the crypto asset class, as well as what this means for the altcoins. So if you're new to the channel and you want to show some support, please do leave a like and subscribe. So I've got this custom-made indicator down here which can color code the Ethereum Bitcoin price based on a few deciding factors that I think are really important for helping to identify some key trends in the market. But I want to talk about this after going over some key levels of support and resistance on this chart. So first, I want to note how we have been in this macro uptrend where the lows are consecutively higher than the previous low. So we first have this low in December of 2016 around 0.0077. And then in this 2019 double bottom, we had the lows around 0.017. So now we are starting to see the initial signs of a breakdown. We're really starting to retest this range low that was kind of formed in June of 2021. And if I just take a measured move here, we've been in this range for approximately 62 weeks. So very, very key. To me, this looks like distribution. I do believe we're going to continue breaking down and generally heading back up to some of these higher highs made in 2021, as well as this rising uptrend. Now, I want to direct your attention to the fact that we had basically this rising structure with these lows becoming higher than the previous lows. And really, we started to bounce off of this trend line, coming back up to a high that was lower than the previous high. So we had this failed bounce here, rolling over, really starting to test this low here, coming back down. And to me, it just looks like it's going to continue rolling over. And we're most likely going to be heading back down to this very important level around 0.045. Now, notice how this was the high in February of 2021. And shortly after this high, we dropped about 35% in just the following 7 weeks. So obviously a very important resistance area. We had some consolidation back in the 2017 cycle, and I do believe we are going to be seeing price reach this level sometime in the next few months. Now, it's going to be a very important interaction because if we're starting to have a very key bounce off of this and reclaiming this support area at 0.55, to me that will look like a macro bottom and yet another higher low in this longer term uptrend. And it depends on when we do test this. I think if we're going to be testing it towards the end of this year, around 2023, then it's going to be very important to watch out for both this support area at 0.44 as well as this rising uptrend, because we could have a scenario in which we test both of these levels and really just have some sort of deviation below this area and a continuation back up. And I think this is probably the most likely scenario. I'm going to be talking about in a second here why I think that is, but most likely I believe we're going to continue this downtrend that has really just been started in November of 2021 towards the top, where we're going to come down. Maybe we have a key test off of this level at again 0.44, 0.45, and then eventually a retest of this trend line. And if we can have a spring back above that level and start reclaiming, that's going to look like, to me, yet another higher low in this macro uptrend. And I think at this point, the bottom in both Bitcoin and Ethereum will most likely have been in. And I think in general, the Ethereum Bitcoin chart has a lot of implications on the market. Now, when it's in these uptrends, it's really signifying how market participants are willing to take on excessive risk, right? They're comfortable with speculating on Ethereum, which is a riskier cryptocurrency than Bitcoin. They're comfortable going farther out the risk curve because it's in a bull market, it's in an uptrend, and generally things are performing well. And similarly, in these downtrends, when Bitcoin is just getting destroyed and interest overall is pretty down, that to me signals that market participants are not wanting to be in riskier assets. They just want to stick to Bitcoin if they're even still in crypto. Now, I think that when we do form this bottom on the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, whether it be today, or maybe it's already in, or in a few months, then I think that will signal the general bottom in sentiment around crypto, because that will mean that people are starting to be a little more speculative. They're starting to be a little bit more comfortable in Ethereum, which is far riskier than Bitcoin, because we see on these drawdowns when Bitcoin say takes a 50% decline, Ethereum will drop most likely 60 or 70%. So it's obviously a pretty high correlation to people's general interest in the market and how people are feeling with altcoins. So when this chart is moving up, specifically altcoins start to get their sunlight in, because it's really signifying how people are once again more excited to take on excessive risk. The altcoins are in an uptrend when Bitcoin has started to consolidate. Maybe it's not doing much, and people are kind of bored of Bitcoin, so they want to speculate on the altcoins. They want to get riskier and riskier and riskier until eventually it bursts, and people are overexposed to the riskier assets, and then that's why they decline much, much more. Now, I do think that eventually we're going to be seeing a turnaround in this ratio. And again, it's been in a decline, a downtrend since this November 2021 top, which is about 31 weeks so far. My expectation, again, I do think towards the end of this year, we'll see a bottom in the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio. I want to switch over to this custom-made indicator here, which is basically going to be telling us whether Bitcoin is above or below the 20-week simple moving average. So if this is color-coded in red, that means Bitcoin is below this 20-week simple moving average. So I'm going to switch over to the Bitcoin chart, and you can see this 20-week simple moving average is this red line. I'm actually just going to toggle the red line so it's only the 20-week simple moving average, just to kind of illustrate this. So when Bitcoin is below this average, such as the June, July, and May of 2021 timeframe, as well as ever since we broke below it in April, this chart is going to be plotted in red. Now, this means that the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio is going to be in a downtrend, because we can see how when Bitcoin is riskier, when it's below this 20-week simple moving average, historically that has led the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio lower. We had this 54% decline from February of 2018 all the way to March of 2019. And this was the key time frame in which Bitcoin started to lose this 20-week simple moving average. So we first lost it here in February of 2018, and then ultimately we didn't break above it until March of 2019. So this is showing you how Bitcoin is in this massive decline. People are not wanting to take on excessive risk. They don't want to be in risky assets, and that led the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio lower, right? It led it much lower, about 55%, and until Bitcoin actually started to enter this sideways consolidation, before it started to actually look like it was going to go back up to new all-time highs, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio actually continued to bleed another 76%. Now, notice this key double bottom in 2019. If we go to 2019, we can see how this is when Bitcoin really started to make its way back up to this $10,000 range. And when it started to go sideways, this is kind of what led Ethereum Bitcoin to form this double bottom and then start this new uptrend. So we basically transitioned from this macro downtrend into this double bottom, which transitioned into this macro uptrend. Now, I do believe we're having a short-term correction, which will ultimately lead to, again, a higher low on this longer-term trend and a continuation back up to some of these higher valuations when Bitcoin does experience its bottom. Now, I think Bitcoin is going to experience its bottom towards the end of quarter 4, but until then, we are still unsure of when the Ethereum Bitcoin bottom will be. So if I switch over to a different color-coded version, I want to show you how Ethereum Bitcoin has quite the seasonality behind it. So if I'm just going to transition this into the quarter 4 only. So this is going to be plotting the quarter 4 price action of Ethereum Bitcoin, and you can see how historically quarter 4 has been a bad season. So if we just go back all the way to 2015, we can see in November, and in October and in December, this quarter 4 in 2015 was pretty negative. We formed a lower low, and ultimately from start to end, we dropped about 20%. If we continue on, we can see in 2016, this quarter 4 was pretty awful. We had a pretty significant drop, about 64% in just this quarter, and quarter 1 was a pretty nice quarter. We had basically the bottom right at the end there. And if we continue on to 2017, again, it was a negative quarter. We dropped about 23% from start to open, but to the bottom, it was around a 60% decline. So really, historically, quarter 4s just have not been a great quarter. We can see only one quarter has netted a positive result, and that was the quarter 4 in 2021, just last year. But even then, we really only pumped around 13-14%. So it wasn't anything to be extremely excited about. And in general, you just don't see great quarters. So going into quarter 4 of this year, my expectation is a continuation of this trend. Some sort of negative quarter. Maybe if we're taking some sort of general guess here, these are pretty much consistently negative 20%, right? We have this one, which is negative 18. We have this one again, which is negative 15, but to the bottom, negative 22. So around, we'll call it 22% just for speculation. If we were to drop 22%, that would take us all the way down to this 0.436. And if we go back to this chart here, we can again look at this key level here, this key high here in February of 2021, again around the 0.44 area. Now, it doesn't matter where the Ethereum Bitcoin bottom ultimately is. We could have a double bottom, something like this. But when we do experience this, it is going to be a very key deciding moment in the market. Is Bitcoin going to start reclaiming some key levels in an uptrend? And altcoins, are they going to become a little bit more interesting? Or are we going to have a macro decline here in the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, kind of taking us back down to this trend line? And then ultimately from there, can we form this higher low, bounce off of this level, and lead us into a new cycle where the altcoins and Ethereum start becoming a little bit more interesting, people are going farther out the risk curve, and Bitcoin has experienced its bottom. So that's the end of my Ethereum, Bitcoin, and long-term crypto asset class analysis. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback, please do leave those below. And as always, I will see you in the next one.